This is very exciting. This is the debut of the Sustainability Hour with Mira and Maggie. And this is Maggie. And I am Mira Rubin. And I am really delighted to be starting this conversation with you about sustainability and what it looks like to create a thriving future and how we can align with heart and mind and action to to create the world that we dream of and bring it into being. So you may not know me. I am going to just do a little bit of an intro so that we can all be oriented together. Maggie is a new and very integral part of my life. She has been with me since January, and she is pretty much a constant companion. And so I have a hi, Robert. Oh, it's so good to have you here. Welcome. I really appreciate you being here for the debut of the Sustainability Hour. I have, and I'm just giving people a little bit of background so that everybody knows who I am and who Maggie is. So Maggie just joined us. Welcome, Bernadette. So glad to have you here for this debut. So um, Maggie is a green cheek conure, and she became a part of my life in January. And I'm gonna tell you, I've got a red spot on my cheek here. She just nipped me. She's feeling spring. And Robert says, couldn't remember the time, but I have notifications on. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I have a weekday morning Facebook Live on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page called Core Connection. So I kind of have this dual personality here, which is actually a little bit of a theme of my life, but I am very much into personal transformation and growth. And I have a coaching practice called Core Connection. And I also am very, very much about finding our mission and our purpose in life. And for me, I had a life altering experience in 2017 when I really took on my life's purpose, which has to do with really saving the world. you know Not single-handedly, obviously, but so what I realized was that every time I thought about what we're doing to the planet, it broke my heart, and I couldn't live with that heartbreak. So I started looking for solutions for the very, very many issues that we are encountering as a global family on this planet that is so magnificent. And so in finding that purpose, what it brought me to was creating, well, have a vision, and the vision is, welcome, Andrea, so good to have you here. The vision is of what I call an eco park. And the eco park is a place, will be, is in the visioning, a place that people can go to and experience the magic of solutions and harmony, that we can live together in collaboration with the planet. And so all kinds of technologies and building modalities and energy modalities, etc. And being that I had this vision and I had no knowledge of the field of sustainability, and it's a very big field. I started a podcast with my Sustainability Now partner in business, called whose name is Scott Billy. So in the description for the show is the website for Sustainability Now. The website is sustainabilitynow.global, and I invite you to go check it out because we have really remarkable interviews with people from all different areas of sustainability, addressing issues from food, energy, housing, waste, water, health, economics, and consciousness. And so consciousness is a key part of this. And here in the Sustainability Hour, we're going to be talking about the shifts of heart and mind and action that we get to take to create a sustainable future, a thriving future. And we're also going to talk about all different areas of sustainability too, and wonderful solutions and hopefulness that is available to us. And hopefully we will collectively move into action to really be able to make a difference toward uh, bringing this future forward for ourselves and for our families and for our children and their children's children. So I that's a little bit about me, and I have found this adventure of sustainability to be one of great inspiration and hopefulness. Yeah, I had to create hopefulness for myself. So when we think about sustainability, I think so many of us are tempted to turn our heads the other way because it just seems like such an incredibly overwhelming concept. An overwhelming problem where what we see on the news, even, I don't even know that there's that much, but what we see is the problems rather than the solutions typically. And the thing is that there are wonderful, wonderful actions being taken by people around the globe that are moving toward solving these issues. And I think that what we get to talk about for today being our debut together for Sustainability Now, or I mean, the Sustainability Hour, forgive me for that, is to talk about what is sustainable, what is sustainability. And we get to look at this notion of sustainability on all different levels, from a personal level of what is sustainable in our own life. So sustainable doesn't mean, at least in my lexicon, sustainability does not mean keeping things the same. It doesn't mean just continuing on to be able to continue to do the same thing over and over. That's not my reference point. Now, there's another really, really big buzzword and movement. It's not just a buzzword by any means. In this action to recreate our relationship with the planet, and that is regeneration. So people talk about sustainability isn't enough. We need to go into regeneration. And the fact is, at this moment in time, we are in an emergency. We are in a global emergency where we're being called to show up and to really be conscious and deliberate and take action and actively correct the things that are our practices that are really ultimately going to destroy our capacity to live on this planet unless we turn it around. The good news is that we can turn it around. And you've probably heard quite a lot about climate change. And there are all kinds of debates around climate change as to whether climate change is man-made or if it is a function of global cycles. And my contention is that it doesn't really matter. And it may be a combination of both, is what I tend to believe, that it is. I will go out on a limb and say, from everything I've seen, it is a combination of both. That a lot of what we're doing is making a huge contribution to global warming. And a big part of this is the carbon emissions that are released into the atmosphere. So we can start off, I guess, by talking about sustainability, regeneration, and climate change. So interestingly, as Maggie is a very active um, uh, character, and she's busy. If you're hearing noise in the background, she's dropping things off a shelf right now, but she likes to play with gravity. Anyway, uh, when we talk about carbon, so there's much of the conversation around climate change is oriented toward carbon and carbon sequestration, because we're burning fossil fuels, we're creating all this pollution in the atmosphere. And what we want to do is we want to capture that back and ideally feed it back to the earth. And then it will start to help normalize our climate. At least that's the thinking. But it goes beyond that, and that's where regeneration comes in, because this is a really complex issue. When we talk about climate change, what we also want to look at is what are the mechanics of climate. And a big thing that often gets overlooked is the impact of our soils. So when we talk about regeneration and regenerative farming, what we're looking at is bringing health back to the soils. Over the past 50 years, probably, we have been degrading our soils through agricultural practices that implement fossil fuel based or petroleum based fertilizers. What we've done is we've taken our idea of how the world works. We've tried to make it mechanical and broken down the mechanics of things. So with soil, we said, oh, okay, the soil needs nitrogen, the soil needs different chemicals or different compounds for the plants to be able to thrive, right? So we take the chemical and we put it in the soil. And along with this idea of trying to nutrify the soil by adding chemicals, for example, we also have been looking at agriculture and nature as a mechanical kind of thing rather than a living system. And by doing that, we would look at trying to optimize production, right? Because we're looking at nature as if it's a machine rather than a living being. And we look at our bodies in so many ways as if they are machines rather than a living system. And as a result, we have segregated these different components, and that's what allows us to say, oh, well, if this much is good in agriculture, how can I optimize that? I can consolidate it. I can create a monocrop, and if I can put just this monocrop, then I can produce more and more and more of this particular crop. And what we're finding is that when that philosophy takes hold, and we see it also in our in the way that we raise animals for food, you know, that we have these big feedlots. And what happens is that these monocultures are then very susceptible to disease. So when you plant a monocrop, there's going to be more disease because there's a concentration of one sort of plant or animal. And then when a disease takes hold, it runs rampant through everything and it can decimate it. And you've probably heard about the millions upon millions of chickens that have been slaughtered because of avian flu. They're kept in these horrible conditions where the idea is not treating them as living beings, but treating them as a commodity, just like we are treating plants as a commodity. And in the course of doing that, they have been jammed into horrible conditions to save money, to make more money, right? Like this is, there's a whole big dynamic that we get to look at. And so with the monocrops that they were getting infestations of insects. So what do? You use more insecticide, and the insecticide has an impact on the soil. And when the rain comes, it washes the insecticides into the soil and it washes it into the water table. And as it's washing it into the soil, what happens is that we end up killing the soil, because what most people aren't aware of is that the soil is alive. There are microbes and bacteria and insects and all kinds of life teeming inside healthy soil. You know, worms and all kinds of other creatures that are in there that are making the soil alive. And not only are they making the soil alive, but they are helping to transmit nutrients and helping the plants to communicate with each other. And there is this incredible network. There's a mycelial network, which is a network of a sort of a root system from fungi in the underneath the soil. When we see mushrooms or we see fungus coming up out of the soil, that is like a flower from a tree, but the root system that is underlying is creating this amazing communication system between trees and plants and fungus and all the other life forms that are happening under the soil or in the soil. So through these insecticides and pesticides, what happens is those life forms get killed off. And that's when that happens, the soil becomes dirt. And as the soil becomes dirt and the rains come, that dirt gets washed away. And that's how we end up having flooding, because the soil can't absorb. We can call it the soil sponge, right? Where the rain comes and the soil is alive and it's able to drink in all this moisture, which then also feeds the water table, or the aquifers that are deep underneath. And that is the source of our water, which is the source of life. So I'm going into this whole thing so that you can understand the bigger picture of how all this works with climate change. So it's not just about pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. What we need to do is to restore the soil. So why? When we restore the soil and keep it covered with living plants, what happens is that those plants have a water cycle, right? They are helping to hold water into the soil and into the water tables. And then what can happen is that all these different plants grow. And as the plants grow, they are changing the climate. They are emitting oxygen, and they are holding moisture. And so there's a balance that occurs in this whole climate cycle, this whole water cycle, where water comes down from the skies. We don't want it to get washed away in flooding. It's captured in the ground. It fills the aquifers. Then there's evaporation. And when we have the plants doing their thing and the soil doing its thing, then it starts to balance the climate. It starts to create a cooling or a cover for the earth and for the atmosphere. And so if you can think about it, if you think about land that's parched and doesn't have anything growing in it, when the sun comes down onto that land, it's baking it. And then when the sun goes down at night, there's nothing there to retain the temperature from the day. So then it's getting frigid cold. And so to create this greater balance, having the greenery, having the cover on the soil is doing a whole lot more than just looking beautiful. It's part of a climate, and part of the mechanics of climate. And so there was a wonderful video movie, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. It was, and I'm going to try and find it while we're talking. So in China, there was an area that had been completely desertified, completely transformed into a desert. And the Chinese government actually made mandated that people restore this area. And they turned the this area into I'm not having luck right now finding this, and trying to talk while I'm doing it isn't going to work. So it is. Oh, welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to be here with you. So you missed my whole talk about climate and climate change and how important it is for us to take care of the soil. But there are some wonderful stories. This also happened in well, it's been happening around the world, but I think in maybe in Saudi, I'm thinking as well, but using certain principles to restore the land. And part of these principles, that's really interesting, it's a changing of our ideas around agriculture. First of all, we have been so conditioned into this mindset of more is better. And from that mindset, we think about efficiencies, because again, we're looking at the world in a very mechanistic way over the past 50 years, the machine age, the industrial age, right? And now we need to, in terms of mindset, we need to move into a much more holistic awareness of this greater system and the interrelationship of all these different components in order to come up with ways of being with nature, in collaboration with nature. We're also, in terms of paradigms, we're also moving away from this hopefully we're moving away from this notion of domination of nature, trying to control nature, to recognizing that we haven't done such a great job at that, and nature is a lot smarter than we've given it credit for, and that there's a lot for us to learn from nature, rather than to believe that through our arrogance that we know it all. And so, what what we what we're coming around to is recognizing this model of regenerative agriculture is sort of flying in the face of our traditions of agribusiness and commercial agriculture, because it was driven by production, by volume, by trying to get the most we could, squeeze the most we could out of the land so that we could make the most money. And I'll talk about this regenerative agriculture and how it works, and give you some resources that you can check out. I also want to ask you guys, in a minute or two, what kinds of things you would like to see on this show, because it's not just about me talking. I mean, I have lots and lots of resources, and we can get into really wonderful conversations about all kinds of different approaches, and so let's look at what we can do with that. Rosalind, welcome. So good to have you here. So Rosalind says the water right laws of the 19 Western states, including California, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, and Wyoming, are based in large part on the custom that governed gold mining claims. That's a really, really interesting point. So there are a lot of laws that get to be changed, and there are a lot of organizations that or companies that have a lot at stake to not have these things changed, right? These mining rights, the rights to be mining our national parks and forests, it's crazy. So Rosalind goes on to say water rights or allocation of water supply are governed mostly by safe law, like water quality issues. Do you mean safe law or state law? Uh, Interestingly, um, I am not super well versed on the details of the laws governing water. However, I want to share that that's what I thought you were saying, state law. Yes, so I think that one of the things that we get to do is to be looking at what our laws are in our states that are protective. And I mentioned to you guys that I have, with my partner Scott Billy in Sustainability Now, we have a podcast, and we also have weekly movie nights. So every Thursday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, we have a movie night. And this week, first of all, this week is Earth Day. And it's also the 50th anniversary of the Environmental Protection Act. And for our programming tomorrow night, we're going to have two guests, a man named Mark Lichty, who made a video documentary about fracking in Pennsylvania. And it's called A Fractured State. And Maya Van Rossum, who is a brilliant, amazing activist. She's an attorney, and she is championing she's calling the Green Amendment movement. And you can find her, let's see, it's called I don't know why I always have an issue remembering this, but I will find it in a minute for you. Green Amendment, yes. So the website is called FOR the Generations.org, forthegenerations.org, and it's talking about the Green Amendment. And what is the Green Amendment? Well, you might often hear people talking about our right to clean water and clean air and a healthy environment. And the fact is, we don't actually have that right in most states. In fact, Pennsylvania and Wyoming are the only states that have in the Bill of Rights a stated right, an amendment in the Pennsylvania and Wyoming's Bill of Rights for the state constitutions that ensure us the right to clean water, clean air, and a healthy environment, and also for generations to come. Now, Maya Van Rossum is championing this as a strategy in states across the country where we put into the state constitution as a right, as a fundamental right, not legislation, but a fundamental right, that we have the right to clean water and clean air and a healthful environment. And in Pennsylvania, and what we're going to be talking about tomorrow evening, is that this amendment to the Bill of Rights is something that is being used to stop fracking, stop the expansion of fracking in Pennsylvania. So let me catch up with some of these comments here. Lisa says, I was just at the Jersey Shore and there were dead fish floating everywhere. Oh boy. Apparently there's an unidentified bacteria killing things off. I wonder if it's because the protected waters are now open. It's very sad to see. I agree, Lisa. There's so much to be on top of, and so much that can that we can. There's so many ways we can expand our awareness. I focus my attention mostly on looking for hopeful solutions in bunches of different arenas, and there are all kinds of people and organizations that are focused on very different, different niches in the sustainability arena. Lisa says, I live in Pennsylvania. I do too. I live in Pennsylvania also, Lisa. So the Green Amendment is a really big deal. And Maya wrote a book called The Green Amendment. And it's heartbreaking and very inspiring. It's heartbreaking in that what is the current truth in our country is that many of the laws that are written by the industries that they are meant to police. So it's the fox in the hen house policing itself. And in Pennsylvania is has a lot of fossil fuel interests. And the laws that were drafted relating to fracking, were drafted to protect these big fossil fuel interests. And there are excerpts from the book that just talk about the provisions in this law. I mean, people were getting sick, and there were cancer clusters and all kinds of horrible things. And in the law, there was a gag order They were enabling a gag order from doctors so that doctors couldn't communicate with other doctors around these issues because they were trying to keep it so completely off the radar of people. It's just a horror show, and I really recommend reading the book and learning about the Green Amendment. And Rosalind says in California, surface water is regulated and groundwater is largely unregulated. However, the state is starting to form groundwater sustainability plans. So Lisa says, I'm in Stroudsburg. I'm in the Philadelphia area. And, you know, as far as this water thing goes, companies like Nestle and Pepsi and Coke have gone and where do you think they get their water? You know, they are taking advantage of a public resource and using a, taking this public resource and bottling it and selling it back to the public. And this, you know, the fact that we have laws that enable something like this is pretty unfathomable to me. And the same thing with our natural resources. Why is it that companies have the right to be destroying our communities, our natural resources by drilling for oil and putting in pipelines that leak and that threaten the welfare of communities? How is it that we have laws that enable that? And why is it that we have drunk the Kool-Aid about you know about the jobs that would be lost if we stopped our addiction to fossil fuels? Because the thing is that there are multitudes of other jobs that are emerging all the time and can be transitioning from this fossil fuel crazed culture to something that is sustainable. There's no question that fossil fuel use is unsustainable going forward, that we need to desperately need to urgently need to find alternative sources. And um, and I think that we need to start connecting the dots. One of the reasons that this whole situation has been able to grow out of control is because we have segmented our awareness and our responsibilities and our concept of society and how things work. And as so many of us here, we're here from Enlightened World Network, right? So many of us have an orientation toward oneness and toward a growing connection with one another and with the world and with the planet. And as that is expanding, we get to really put our attention on on some of these things that we take for granted that are really based in total insanity. You know, just like some of the ways that our rules exist, our laws exist, it's just total craziness. And so I'll get back to your comments here. So Rosalind says blue-green algae blooms can be toxic to dogs. I think they're toxic, period. They pop up in stagnant parts of the lake around St. Louis. Is it St. Louis or St. Louis Obispo? I don't know. I'm sorry. During the summer. Yes. So the toxicity that is created in so much industry is not isolated. Lisa says they wanted to use a local creek. They blocked everything off for over a year, then the deal died. I'm guessing this is a pipeline that you're talking about. So the thing about pipelines, there is that they somehow the industry seems to be able to have, uh, I forget what it's called, when your land can be taken and uh, for the good of the whole, sort of thing. And I think we get to wake up to seeing that these foundational industries that we have based so much of our economy on, like our economy right now is really a fossil fuel economy. um, we get to see how uh, the underlying assumptions need to change. It's very much the emperor with no clothes. We get to start calling out these assumptions that we've made that are really, uh, at the very least, destructive, and on the other extreme, just totally crazy. Eminent domain. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, eminent domain. So that's when land can be taken because a company decides that it has a better use for it. So that they may be taking your. I've heard of situations where they were trying to implement eminent domain to put up a shopping center, for instance. And I mean, they, I think we get to wake up and actually play a part in the way that we're shaping our world. So on that note, I'm going to just ask you guys for a moment for your feedback. Like, what would be beneficial to you in this sustainability hour? Would you like to see possible conversations with experts? Because I may be able to get people to join us here and have live conversation. Would you like to be having conversations like this? Would you like to be having topical conversations where I can provide you with more resources? Um, what is it you would like this to be? What would be empowering for you? Because I want to be able to talk all around the map about issues that arise, and share some of the things that I've learned from some of the folks that I've had the privilege to speak with. But I also think maybe we can harness some of our energy and put it into taking action beyond just talking, to be looking at, well, what things can we do in our own lives that will make a difference. And um, I think that there's a whole spectrum of things that we can do with this hour together each week. And I'd love to have your feedback. So Lisa says, I'd like to talk about protections for our waters and what we can do. So Lisa, really, go look up Maya Van Rossum. She is the one that I was speaking about earlier, who is championing the Green Amendment, but she is also the Delaware waterkeeper. And so for, I think it's maybe 25 years, she has been a champion for the waters in the Delaware Water Gap. And if you want to get involved in that, and what she's doing, she's a great resource. And please join us tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sustainability Now for our movie night. So here's how the movie night works. you need to go to our website, sustainabilitynow.global, and you should see the URL for the website in the description. You want to go there and register for our email. And we send out an email typically Tuesday mornings and Thursday evening at around 5 p.m. Eastern, a reminder email with registration links for our Zoom movie night. And what we do is it goes through Zoom, and then you register. Everybody gets a unique registration. That's how we keep Zoom bombers out. And then we show either an interview or a movie, and we typically have either our interviewee or the somebody related to the film that we're showing there for live conversation after we show the video or movie, the interview or movie. So tomorrow should be really, really interesting. And the beautiful thing is that we do Q&A, so people get to talk to the people that are, it's live conversation. So Lisa, do that. Go to the website, go to sustainabilitynow.global, and sign up for our email list. And then tomorrow, when you get the registration link, it'll be coming from our Sustainability Now at gmail.com, I believe. The invitation will come from. And join us and meet Maya, and you can ask questions. That's really what tomorrow is about. And in this case, it's talking specifically about fracking and the Green Amendment. But there's no better person that I can think of to talk to than Lisa. Than Maya about protections for our waters. And Andrea says, all of the above. Knowledge is power. Okay, good. So we can have a diversified program. And Rosalind says, maybe consumer products to buy as an alternative, such as replacing items that will reduce the use of plastic waste. I love that you brought that up, Rosalind. In fact, I can pull together some resources for that, I think. I've been getting solicitations from a company that makes these just flat packet laundry detergents, for instance. So it's not a big box of laundry detergent. I think it's concentrated, and it's like a leaf of laundry detergent that you just put in the washing machine. I don't even use laundry detergent. I have these this ball that has pellets or something in it, and I use that, and I can use it over and over and over again. But we don't have to buy liquid detergent. We don't have, and these little leaves, I guess. I'll find out who they're from, but they dissolve, and they are packaged sustainably. And I think that's a great idea, Rosalind. Maybe we can all share resources for consumer products. And I had a pre-interview today with somebody that was talking about recycling plastic and plastic waste. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that we can talk about regarding plastics. And good, Lisa. So I hope you will join us for tomorrow evening's movie night. And Rosalind says, how to kill weeds naturally instead of using Roundup. Please don't use Roundup. Oh my gosh, please stop. Glyphosate is a scourge. We get to talk about that, and there are resources that I can point you to in relation to that as well. So Rosalind says, I like to use vinegar with a little Dawn soap. I forget the proportions, but it works great on a hot day. The soap breaks down the plant's waxy protective layer, and the vinegar penetrates to the root of the weeds. Ah, interesting. Okay, so that I think I had heard about vinegar, but that's brilliant. I love that we can share these solutions. I'm wondering if there's a way that Facebook doesn't really lend itself to this, but I'm wondering if there's a way that we can put together some these tips and tricks and recipes and things that you guys might want to share. I'm wondering, I maybe one way we could do that is to start a Slack channel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Slack, but it's free, and it enables us to, maybe we could post things in different channels. So, consumer products and gardening tips and uh, maybe fermenting tips. I love to do fermenting. It would be really fun to be having maybe a session on that sometime, or to be talking about those things, because all of, what we're looking at doing is changing our habits. And so maybe you can help me here. We'll keep this thread going, and you can share ideas. And I'm wondering if you guys would give me feedback if we started a Slack channel to be sharing ideas and opportunities. Kimchi recipes. Yes, Rosalind, I'm right there with you. That's what I was thinking of when I was talking about fermented foods. But I'm wondering if you guys would use a Slack channel if we set one up. So Slack is an app that you can use on your desktop or you can use on your phone. And it's like a chat. It's like this. It's like a chat. But you can post images, you can post links, and we could have all kinds of resources that we collected together. I I could probably set something like that up if you want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. But I thought it would be really nice to be able to have a repository place for whatever we want to share, so maybe if you have a favorite kimchi recipe, for instance, you could share it in the fermented food section of the Slack channel. So I'm not seeing any feedback from you guys yet about whether you'd like to do this thing on Slack. It's kind of, it's kind of like Facebook in a way, but it would be private to us. And, or I guess we could set up a Facebook group, but then it's still really hard to find stuff and you have to scroll through everything. And I just like the idea in Slack of being able to categorize things. Or if you have another idea about how we might be able to collect all the resources that we share with each other. So maybe you can keep this chat going after I shut down for today. And it's a way that we could continue to have conversation with it. Okay, so Lisa says she's in. She'd be willing to try it. I think I'm going to see if I can set up a Slack channel for our time together, and we can go play with that and see if it is a good solution for us. It's a chat, and it's a way for us to share and build community, and maybe even build some actions. So okay, I'm going to set that up, and I guess we can. I'll see if I can get to talk about it in this thread. Although finding it in Facebook, I guess what I'll do is I'll talk about it next week, and maybe I can. What I'll do is maybe I can post the Slack channel in the description, but I'm not quite sure how it works to get a whole bunch of people invited to it. So I guess I have a little bit of research to do. Let me figure that out, and we will do that together. That'll be great fun. And I also encourage you guys to join Sustainability Now. We do have a Facebook group. So if you look for Sustainability Now on Facebook, we have sort of a yin yang symbol in green and blue. That's our logo. And it would be awesome to have you join our Facebook group too. I haven't been really active in the Facebook group. I have to confess, Facebook isn't my, I don't, it's not my go-to place. So I do these lives here, but I don't really spend time on Facebook other than that. So I think the Slack channel sounds like it could be a good thing. Anyway, I welcome you and I thank you so much for being here for the debut. This is just so exciting. And who knows what's going to unfold, right? We never know. And I am excited to be here with you in this context, which is a little bit different than the core connection. Actually, it's a lot different. And but there is overlap. So I'm thrilled to have you join us. Please share about this sustainability hour, because I think we really have the opportunity to do something really powerful collectively. And I'm eager to do it with you guys. So thank you. And we bring Maggie up here. Maggie says thank you. And as always, it's really a tremendous privilege to be here with you. So much love.